Wow, I am telling you, trying to film this video has been absolutely ridiculous. My phone is like full on storage apparently, and I had already gone through and deleted a whole bunch of videos, and this has happened to me before, and then like my phone needed an update, and then it was completely fine. It's like at this point where it doesn't matter how much I delete, I try to film a video and I get like 10 minutes in, it like stops recording and says that the storage is full. Which is absolutely ridiculous because I just deleted a bunch of stuff, including like hour-long videos. So there should be plenty of room. Anyways, so I am using my Logitech webcam. I never really liked this because I always struggle with trying to find the right coloration. It's very, very frustrating. And the sound, let me double check the sound. The sound is also one of those things. It's very frustrating. Is that better? All right, we're testing this. And because sometimes you can hear the fan from my computer in the microphone on the webcam. I apologize for the quality of this video. I'm doing the best I can here, but I really wanted to film this video because I'm very excited to do it. Well, I just recorded this other video last night, so we'll see which one makes it up first. That one should make it up before this video. I kind of mentioned in my like 2022 reading goals that I was going to be participating in this reading challenge called Read Your Bookshelf Reading Challenge, and this challenge was created by Chatel Reads, and I will leave all of her information in the description box below. So if you would like to join. A long time ago I created this video about like how to rock your readathon or your reading challenges, kind of about like tactics of choosing the right books to read for like a week-long readathon. When I was doing a lot of readathons not last year but the year before, it seemed like there was a lot of stress around picking the right books for these readathons and trying to match them perfectly, and so I kind of wanted to alleviate some of that stress and also just have a lot of fun with it. Plus, I personally just find a lot of fun in creating TBRs to match certain prompts. So this video is just a collection of all the books that I have on my shelf, because that is kind of the goal. This reading challenge is to read what you have. Of course, she does say that it's not super strict like that. Like if you want to go check out a book from the library, that's completely fine. Whatever you want to do. But for me personally, I just want to read the books that I already own. Sorry, I got like ate up by mosquitoes the other night, and like they bit my neck, and it's like, all of a sudden it's super itchy. So basically what I've done is gone through all of the reading prompts and selected pretty much all the books that I have that would fit the prompt. I think for the month of January, I have finalized my decision of what I'm gonna read. It's just, I like to have options because I like to plan ahead, but I also like to have options because 6 months down the line, 2 months down the line, I might not be in the mood for reading that specific book. Also, I find that it's helpful, like I think for July, all the books that I have on my options are very large books. So approaching that month, I know that I need to wrap up some of the things I'm reading the month before so I actually have time to complete that book. So that's a little bit of what goes into my head while I like to plan ahead for what I want to read. Oh, also I wanted to mention that if any of these books sound good to you or you want to read them as well and you'd like to plan a buddy read, I'm absolutely game for that. So just hit me up and we can plan that. Since we are in January, I've pretty much already finalized the book that I'm definitely going to read for this month, but I have 4 book options for you. So let's go ahead and get into this. For the month of January, I pretty much already finalized the one book that I'm definitely going to read, or that I plan to read anyways. I do have 4 options for you. So for the month of January, the prompt is to read a book with a quiet word in the title, and I really like this prompt because it's very flexible. The one that I have chose is Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, and this one is also the one that Chantel features in her video. I really like the Silent Patient for this one just because it's been so overdue for reading this book. I think that I'm gonna get super addicted to it and fly through it. Also, it's not a super long book, which is gonna be nice because I am reading some other really long books already. So the Silent Patient is about a patient who refuses to talk, and I think she's in a mental institution, and there's a psychotherapist
who needs to find out what happened, and so it's about them like getting to the bottom of it. Another one that I feel like fits perfectly is The Fountains of Silence. However, this one, personally for this one, is kind of a chunky book for me for this month. This one would fit really well. This one is about this boy, Daniel, who is the son of this guy who like works in the oil. He's like high up in the oil, which is kind of interesting because that's like what my husband does. His mom is a native of Spain, and I guess they like moved away and now they're moving back to her hometown during the Spanish Civil War. So I think this is gonna be really, really interesting, like historical fiction here. So the next one is night film. I just feel like night is a quiet time. So anything like that uses night or midnight, even words like poet, I feel like would be really good for this reading prompt. But anyways, we have night film here. This is a very interesting book. This is like a thriller, and also it's like one of those books that's like written in a different format. So it's kind of interesting. Beyond that, I don't really know what else it's about. With thrillers, I tend to like not know anything going into it. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Barrett. I do not know how to say his name. This apparently is a true crime. I didn't know that. I thought it was like gothic fiction, but apparently it is a true crime that takes place in Savannah, Georgia. And of course, midnight, I feel like, is a quiet time. So for the month of February, the prompt is to choose a book with love in the title. The first one I'll give, which I probably will not read, is just love poems. I just pulled it from my shelf because it said love. But I don't really actually see myself reading a whole collection of love poems all in like at once. But there's nothing that says like you have to read the entire book. A book of love poems. This has poems from people like Wordsworth, Hardy, Rossetti, Donne, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, so more like older poets. The next one is a collection of short stories called Love Stories in This Town by Amanda Eyre Ward, and the back of it just sounded really cute, like a bunch of like a whole like eclectic array of quirky characters, so that just sounded pretty good. The next one is called The Book of Love by Roger Rosenblatt, and this one is like another short story collection. I guess the author particularly wanted to cover all different types of love: romantic love, courtship, marriage, battle, heartbreak, fury, confusion, melancholy, beauty, delirium, ecstasy, love of lovers, family, friends, of country, of work, writing, solitude, of art, love of nature, and love of life itself. So I found that this was really interesting take on love because there's so many different types of love, not just romantic love. So that sounded just really, really interesting, especially if you're not one who's like super into romance, like the spirit of Valentine's. And I think that this would be really good. The next one is actually another book of love poems. However, it is in Spanish. This is called Amore by Paulo Coelho. I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce his name. But yeah, this is an absolutely gorgeous edition, and it has just absolutely beautiful details on the pages and beautiful artwork. This is a book of love poems in Spanish. I am going to be studying Spanish this year. Hopefully I will stay consistent with it, but I thought that this would be a really good option. I consider myself a very beginner because I haven't really crossed that period of where I feel like I can hold a conversation like at all. And reading is still pretty challenging for me. So these are very short. I feel like I can easily get the translation and learn in little sections. And the last one is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Yes, this one sounded so good, like an epic romance. And this is about Florentino and Fermina. And I guess in their young youth, they have a very passionate romance. And then her family, Fermina's family, doesn't like Florentino, and something happens, so they go their separate ways. She marries another man, and he waits his entire life until she is no longer married, finds her and tells her that he is still in love with her. I'm thinking that for this month, I might do both of them. So for the month of March, the theme is growth. So I guess that can be anything from like themes on the title or themes in the book. I have some really interesting options for this. The first one I have is Anne of Green Gables by Elle and Montgomery. This is also the one that Chantel put on her video as well, but I had to add it to mine because it's one that I definitely need to get to. I've heard one of my favorite YouTubers recently read it and just said it's like, how did I go through my entire life not reading it? It's like the most cozy, fun, refreshing book, and I think that would be also a really good start to like spring and everything else. You know, this is about Anne and I guess how she grows up, and I guess she lives on a farm and stuff like that. The next one is Peter Pan, because this is all about growing up or not wanting to grow up, and I thought that was pretty interesting take on growth. I don't think that one needs explaining. We should all know what that one is about. This is a book that my son just got for Christmas, and it is called Gregor the Overlander by Suzanne Collins, part of the Underland Chronicles. Oh, what was it, like 5 or 6 books? They're really short, middle grade, but I thought that this was a really fun take on growth because this is about these kids who escape into the underground and how humans live under there with these overgrown rodents and bugs. So we have giant rodents and bugs. Sounds terrifying, but also kind of fun. So there's that. The next one is a short story collection called Mashup. This is stories inspired by famous first lines. I thought this was a completely different take on growth, being as the spark of like an idea blossoming into like a full story. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and read the back of this because I didn't even read it when I picked this up. So Pride and Prejudice meets Macbeth by way of Wizard of Oz and the dollop of the speculative. In this entertaining anthology where authors get inspiration from short stories from the first lines of famous works of literature, edited and respected by anthologist Gardner Dozois. So there's that. And the last one in this category is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, because, you know, the growth of the day, sun rising. Anyways, I don't actually know much about this book. I have a whole other project that I wanted to do around this book, so I might end up having to choose this book at the end of the day, just because it will kind of double for another project. Moving on to April, I only have one book for this prompt, and this is the prompt where I can't really give recommendations for anybody else because the prompt is to choose a book with your initials. So obviously everyone's initials are different. Mine are MTB. Those are my married initials, and I thought if I got stuck, I could use my maiden name, which is MTL. However, I thought that this was gonna, for some reason I was thinking this was gonna be easier. I literally only have one book that's the closest match. Everything else, like, maybe only had like, they only ever had one letter. I didn't even find one that had two of the same letters. What the hell? I couldn't even find one book that had like 2 of the letters. So this one ended up being my only option to fulfill this. And that's actually completely okay, because that is The Book Thief by Mark Zusick. And this will also help me complete this book because I started this book a really long time ago, and for whatever reason, I only made it like less than halfway through. I keep thinking I'm going to go back to this book, but I just never make it there. That will be really good. Also, I forgot to mention this in my other video, so I might have to do an add-in clip, but I'm also going to be participating. Well, I'm not participating in any organized readathon. I just have my own personal goal of reading books from around the world. So this could actually work for a destination on my world books. The prompt for May is to read a book by a new to you author. Again, this is another one that I can't exactly give recommendations for. I read a ton of books by new to me authors. This one's going to be super easy to fulfill for anyone. So this one doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. So we're going to go ahead and move on to June. The prompt for June is to read a book that has a book on the cover. So this one for me either has books, like physical books on the cover, or it has the word book in the title. I have 4 books for this. The first one that I feel like this is going to be the one that I stick with is going to be The Book of Speculation by Erica Swiler. And this one is about this mysterious book that arrives on this girl's doorstep, and it's filled with all these really crazy sketches and pictures of mermaids and stuff like that. And then on the other hand, there's another character who is concerned about a sister who ran off with the circus, and it just sounds so good. Okay, the next one is called The Archivist by Martha Cooley, and this has a huge stack of books on the cover, which is a really intriguing cover, and then also the spine makes it look like an old book that's like sitting on a shelf. So I really love the cover of this book, really interesting. But this is about 2 characters, a guy who is like safeguarding T.S. Eliot's old letters, and then a girl who is a poet. And these 2 like don't really get along, I guess, at first, but then they develop into a friendship. But I just really like the idea of having like a poet and then this other person who is on the other side of it, who's like fascinated with T.S. Eliot's work. The next one I have on the list is called The Book of Salt by Monique Trong. This one I forgot. Vietnamese cook employed by Gertrude Stein. I know that name. Why do I know that name? Oh man, this sounds like such an well, I wouldn't pick a book that sounds boring, right? This one's kind of difficult to explain. It's got a lot going on. It takes place in like 1930s Paris, and it follows a Vietnamese cook who, I guess, immigrated from Saigon, and they struggle to fit in Paris, and it explores like the art world and gritty like nightlife. So I guess the whole Book of Salt is more like in relation to like maybe like a cookbook kind of. And the last one for this is called The Bookseller of Kabul. I believe that it's about these women who risk everything to bring books to the people of Kabul because they are like banned from reading and stuff like that, so they have to go through extreme lengths to hide books. I actually have another one. I should have added it to the list. My bad. I also have Reading Lolita and Tehran. I think that I didn't put this on the list at first because it didn't have book in it, but reading and book can kind of go hand in hand. If you're really hard up, I'm sure that it will pass. I mean, technically, it looks like they're probably reading a book that's down here. So, Reading Lolita and Tehran. Actually, there is the word book. It says a memoir in books. Again, this is kind of along the same lines of Islamic Republic in Iran, and these women, I guess, take it upon themselves to secretly read and share books to people. Actually, all of these would fulfill like destinations for reading around the world challenge as well. All right, we're halfway through. The next one is for the month of July, and that is to read books that you have actively been like putting off and procrastinating or reluctant to read, and this one's a hefty one. The first one I have is the Chronicles of Narnia. I think that this is deceiving because it's a huge compendium of like all 7 books. So it looks really scary. So yeah, I need to just like stop thinking about this book in whole, and like it's okay if I just read like one of the stories, which is, yeah, this is The Magician's Nephew, and I've already like kind of like folded over, dog-eared the pages to divide the books up, so it's not really that scary. This one I might actually have to prioritize because I want to read the English version, and then I actually have these books in Spanish as well, so then I can have a side-by-side look as I'm trying to learn Spanish. This might also work for another prompt later on, but we'll get to that. So I'll keep that one out. The next one is Strange the Dreamer, and this one is kind of a larger book. I feel like this is a really good book to read like for my birthday month. July is my birthday month. I know that I'm gonna like fall in love with this book, but for whatever reason, like maybe I'm like afraid it's gonna disappoint or something. I just keep putting it off. I didn't even tell you what this one's about. So this is about this boy named Laszlo Strange, and he is a war orphan and also a junior like librarian. He has been like obsessed with this mystic city of Weep. So he goes on this big adventure to this place of Weep, and then what else happens? I forgot. Yeah, so then he has all these like mystic dreams and stuff like that. So it's just supposed to be like really beautiful writing and just fantastical and magical. So sign me up. The next one I've been putting off for a long time is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami, just because it's massive. It's over 1,000 pages. However, this again is deceptive because this is technically 3 books in one. Is it 3 books or 2 books? I just need to read it. I love Murakami books. I want to read all of his works. July might be a really good month to read this book. I've been putting that one off. This one is another one I've recently acquired and I have been putting off because I haven't been hearing the greatest things about it. There's the TV show, there's the video game, which I'm very intrigued by, and then there is the book. So I definitely want to get into the whole Witcher fandom. I think that's another reason is because I have other series that I'm reading and I kind of like, I'm reluctant, like I have to put a lot of thought into starting new series because I don't want to have like 200 series that have started and haven't finished. So I like to like finish a couple before I start a new one. Anyways, we have Season of Storms, and I think that I'm also trying to get out of my head a little bit and just be like, don't listen to what other people say, like go into it fresh. However, maybe it's setting it up for being surprised because maybe I'll have low expectations and I'll end up really liking it. I'm hoping that will be my experience with this book. Either way, some of these things are what keeping me back from reading this book. This is about Geralt, who is a witcher, and witchers are capable of hunting monsters. I really like the concept of this because it's like male vampire slayer, right? But a monster slayer. You know me, and that's that. Okay, moving on. The very last one of this is The Hero of Ages, which is the 3rd in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. This one I have really just been putting off because the second one was a journey. It took me like 3 months to get through that book, and I loved it. I really did, but there was a time in there that would really slow down. And so I guess I'm just worried that this is also going to have to take some serious dedication and concentration and effort to push through if it slows down like the other one did. And I just kind of needed a break from it, and my break has taken a little bit longer than anticipated. And so that's kind of what's been holding me back from picking this book up. Next, we're going to move on to August. The prompt for August is to pick a book with a body part on the cover. This one I had a lot of fun choosing books for. Some surprising ones I didn't anticipate. We're going to go with some of the most generic, easy ones, and then we're going to get into some funnier ones, then we're going to go out of the box a little bit and have some fun with that. Okay, the first one I initially thought of just right off the bat was The Bone Witch by Rinchipeko, and this is just one I really want to get to. Don't know why I haven't yet. I think again because it's a trilogy and I'm just not ready to dig into another series, because I tend to like, before I start a series, I anticipate wanting to binge read it. That's kind of what holds me back from like starting new series. The Bone Witch briefly is about a witch who has power to bring people back from the dead or something, so she's a necromancer. And then there's a lot of other witches in this universe that do different things, but she is the Bone Witch. The next one is, I think this is a standalone. I don't really know. I haven't read from this author before. This is a book by Ursula K. Le Guin. I didn't know, her name keeps popping up a lot recently, so I found this at a charity shop, and this is called The Left Hand of Darkness. This doesn't actually have a synopsis on the back, so I can't tell you what this is about. I'm just pretty sure this is like a science fiction. I also hope that it's not like in the middle of series, I don't believe. So there's that. But it has the word hand. So we've got a bone and we got a hand. And we also have an eye, In the Eye of the Sun. And this one is a big boy. This one's really hefty. So this is really about Middle Eastern politics, and this Egyptian journalist tells the story of this woman who lives in like the Egyptian elite group, which I think is a really interesting take, because we read so many books about the impoverished, and this focuses on a woman who's in the elitist group, and she marries an Englishman, and then she has like this sordid affair with another Englishman. She also struggles living between cultures. So this sounds just so good. Now we have 3 books that are about like the entire body. So we have Celestial Bodies. This is another one that is like a Middle Eastern tale. This follows like three sisters. 2 of them like get married. One of them rejects like the expectations and wants to wait for love, and she immigrates to Canada. So it just kind of follows their stories. It just sounds really good. Then we have Naked by David Sedaris. So like David Sedaris, this is a collection of memoir essays or stories about his life. And then we have Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs. And this, I believe, is also like a memoir. I really don't even know much about this. A book that redefined literature, a startling tale of a narcotics addict unmoored in New York City, Tangier, and ultimately a nightmarish wasteland known as Inner Zone. Formal innovation, taboo subject matter, and virtuoso style have exerted. Can't tell, is this supposed to be... I don't even know much about it. I know that's got a lot drugs. And I believe it's kind of a memoir. And then the last 2, just briefly, I thought this was an interesting take on a body part, because these are not human body parts. So take that as you will. This can be taken in a lot of different ways. For big fantasy readers, this could be fun. So we have White Fur by Jordine. I can't really read the handwriting here. Jordine something. This is actually a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and it's quite small, so that's an option. And then we have a new book that I really definitely want to get to, called Crown of Feathers. The other book in this series is... the other books in this series are Heart of Flames and Wings of Shadow, and these are all body parts from fantasy creatures, so that could work as well for a take on body parts. Alright, so the prompt for September is to read a collection, and that can be like a short story collection, an essay collection, whatever. So I have a lot. I have so much more than this, but I kind of wanted to pick from like different... I don't think I put any like just poetry collections, and we would also be here all day if I shared every single collection with you. A collection of stories by Ernest Hemingway. I picked this up over the summer last year at the Hemingway house. I'm so excited. I really want to read this. I'm also a little bit intimidated because I don't want to ruin my special book from a place that I got it. But what are books for? To read them, right? Anyways, I asked the salespeople at the store, I was like, I haven't really read Hemingway before, and where would you start? So they said, they directed me to this. This is also featured in a PBS production, so I thought that would be a really good place to start. So we'll see. So it's a little bit of a taste test of his work. However, I also have another Hemingway book that I think I'm going to prioritize for another prompt. So I might not get to this one, but that's an option for you guys if you're interested. Here is another one that's also based on a Netflix series, or Netflix series was based off of this book, and that is Tales from the City by Amistad Maupin. I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But this is a short story collection about tales around the city. San Francisco, 1970s San Francisco. Oh my gosh, my stomach is growling. This is an essay collection called The Tipping Point, Little Things That Can Make a Big Difference. Let me just read the back of this one because it's a little bit hard to kind of put into my own words. Is the magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips and spreads like wildfire. I thought this was a unique pick for this, something that maybe we didn't really consider. This is called Plato and Platypus Walk into a Bar. And this is about understanding philosophy through jokes. I thought that was such a fascinating take. If you are interested in philosophy, I've never actually taken a college course on it. I do have Philosophy for Dummies, which is actually packed away in a box. This covers philosophical topics like logic, existentialism, language, and ethics in a short little fun reading experience. I don't know if it's that fun, but it claims to be. The next 3 are books that I've actually kind of already started, so these would be really good options for me personally so that I could finish them and cross them off my list. This is Upstream by Mary Oliver, and this is selected essays. She does a lot of writing about nature and stuff like that, and I find her writing really beautiful. I have read a couple in here. For the life of me, I can't even remember. I remember really enjoying them, but for the life of me, I can't remember what they're particularly about. I do think I would probably have to start over. This one is The Beauty of the Husband by Anne Carson. This is one I kind of started, however, I was struggling to kind of understand the format because she is a very unique writer. But this is a collection of essays written in 29 tangos. So I learned this after starting this book, but she tends to not really write in a specific format. So she will write an essay but in poetry format, and that, like it says, like a tango is a type of a poem. So it's very unique. I think it definitely takes some prepping before you get into it. I have not really gotten into it. Also, these headers, like for instance, this header, I think I'm having a hard time understanding. I'm trying to get the right angle here. Everything looks backwards. So we have this header, and that's supposed to be the title of this essay, and it's like the longest thing ever. But I do want to read from Anne Carson. I've heard nothing but amazing things about her writing. So finally, this is another one that I started, and these are super short, just fun. Some of them are really funny. And this is Selected Stories by Chekhov, and the first one I read was hilarious. The others, they're kind of so-so, but I do want to get into Russian literature, and so I thought this was a really good kind of entry point into Russian literature. So that's that. And then finally, this was the last one I threw on the pile, just because considering that it is September and October is spooky month, this is a short story collection with spooky horror novels. So it's all themed around spookiness, and I thought that this might actually be the best option because it can get me in the mood for spooky season. I could read spooky stuff all year round. Moving on to the month of October, the prompt is to read a book with the word secret in the title. I only have 2 books for this: Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa Lee. This takes place in 19th century in the Hunan County, where women are I guess they talk about foot binding and stuff like that. Very oppressive lifestyle for women. And so these women have developed a way to talk in secret using their fans, I guess. That is that. Also, it's a nice little short book, so I thought that would be nice. The other one is The Secret History. Not The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which brings me to a question I have about The Secret History, because The Secret History has The Secret History by Donna Tartt, a lot of literary references through it. I kind of was curious. I did some very preliminary surface level digging about The Secret History. I wrote the notes down somewhere, but The Secret History is kind of something that's supposed to be secret but is actually fake or something like that. I forgot. Anyways, so this is The Secret History by Procopius. I didn't even know that this thing existed until I just saw it at my bookstore, And that started me wondering if there was something more to the title, The Secret History. So I definitely want to read this and kind of compare and contrast and see what it's all about. Also, this is a short book. Procopius was a trusted member of the Byzantine establishment, tongue twister there, Byzantine Empire. I want to say empire. Byzantine establishment whose official works glorified the deeds of the Emperor Justinian. Yet all the while, the dutiful scribe was working on the book that could never be published during his lifetime, The Secret History, a sustained assault exposing the horrific tyranny and corruption of the empire's regime. Here Justinian is a demon king capable of any evil deeds, while his wife, Empress Theodora, is a bloodthirsty monster of depravity and cruelty. Celebrated General Belisarius is the foolish dupe of his scheming wife, Antonia. Magnificently virtuolic, startling original, The Secret History is a work of explosive energy depicting Holy Byzantium as a hell of murder and misrule. That just sounds so fascinating, and I also feel like the subject matter is really interesting for spooky month. We've got all this like horrific events going on, which is really good for October. This might end up being my pick for October. For the month of November, the prompt is to choose a cozy, nostalgic book. My first pick was Twilight for this. For whatever reason, I've just been feeling like for the longest time I'm due for a reread or even to rewatch the movies. But this could also apply to any of those books from that time that I just fell in love with, that I still really love. However, they are all packed away, so that's not going to happen unless I check out the audiobook. But again, I want to read the books that I have. So I picked out Snow Falling on Cedars by David Gutterson. I feel like the atmosphere is really good for getting into fall and winter. Also, this is a book that was given to me so long ago. I had ended up getting rid of that original copy a long time ago, but I found this. It keeps like being in my face. It keeps coming to the surface. So I feel like I just need to read it. The more I continue seeing it, the more I want to read it. So I picked up a copy again. And this is about a crime. So this takes place on San Pedro Island. Takes place in 1954, where a local fisherman is found drowned, and there is an individual who is suspect. It's kind of all about that. I think that they want you to believe that he's innocent and he's being framed, and how this all affects his life. Kind of dark, ominous crime here. The next one I just kind of threw on the pile is personally nostalgic to me, and that is Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller. And this is a book that I've had for eternity. Wait, no, I have a better one for this. Just kidding. My bad, just kidding, starting over. Sorry for the cover, it's white, it's a DIY'd cover, but that is the first volume of the Diary of Anais Nin, and this is a memoir. This is a diary. So they've taken her diaries and they've published them, and I started this eternity ago, and I never finished it. I do remember like absolutely falling in love with it. I found it so inspiring and a learning tool for me, because I was a big journal keeper, and I just love the things like how raw, and as I remember, I found it extremely raw and exciting. Like, she's very interesting life. She also had a close relationship with Henry Miller, and that is why I picked this up. So this duo is just very nostalgic, and I believe this takes place in Paris, so that's an option. This one's kind of hard to really give a recommendation to other people, because what is nostalgic is going to be different for everybody. But I do think there could be a cozy element to at least this one. And then this is where I'm going to go back to the Chronicles of Narnia. I'm sorry, it's over on the shelf over there, but we all know what it looks like. The Chronicles of Narnia actually might get bumped down to this challenge, because I feel like it could be very cozy. I do remember seeing the movie, so it could kind of bring back the movie. So I feel like that would work very well for this challenge. And I feel like for other people, that is a very universally like nostalgic story, and universally kind of cozy middle grade fantasy. So I think that one will end up getting bumped down to November's challenge. And finally for December, I only have one book for this. There could be so many, but we just don't have time to sit here all day for all of these books. So the prompt for December is to pick a book with mostly white on the cover. So as you can tell, this is not going to be a challenge to find a book for this. I just happened to pick up The Snow Child by Ewan Ivey because, well, it's mostly white on the cover, but also it takes place in winter and snow, and it's just perfect for winter. Because I have a lot of covers that are mostly white that I definitely want to read, but I definitely feel like for the month of December, I would like to read something. I wanted to read this either now, this winter, but I don't think that I'm going to get to it, so it might get bumped to next winter. Anyways, Alaska 1920, a brutal place of homestead, especially tough for recent arrivals, Jack and Mabel. Childless, they are drifting apart, struggling to maintain the farm. Crumbling from loneliness and despair, in a moment of levity during the season's first snowfall, they build a child out of snow. The next morning, the snow child is gone, but they glimpse a young girl running through the trees. This little girl, who calls herself Faina, seems to be a child of the woods. She hunts with the red fox at her side and somehow survives along the Alaska wilderness. Jack and Mabel come to understand this child, who could have stepped from the pages of a fairy tale. They begin to love her as their own daughter. But in this beautiful, violent territory, things are rarely as they appear, and what they eventually learn about Faina will transform them all. That sounds just so amazing. All right, that is all the recommendations that I have for this video. I'm sorry this video is super long. Let me know if you're going to participate in this reading challenge, and if you'd like to buddy read again, let me know. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.